Does he bite? No, but he can hurt you in other ways. And then the dog says, understanding programming memes doesn't make you a dev. What's up, Sam? It's Guys here, and I think it's time for some more programming memes because why not? If you haven't, I did do a previous video on this, so you guys should definitely check that out. So I spent hours digging through Instagram, Reddit, looking for some funny programming memes. Most of them were kind of dumb, or maybe I just wasn't smart enough to understand them. But I mean, come on, we know that's not true. So the point of the video is to go through the memes, explain what they mean, and why they're funny. So without further ado, let's get into some memes. All right, this one here is pretty savage. Here we have the Bill and Melinda Gates Center for Computer Science and Engineering. I actually looked it up. This is a building at the University of Washington. And I also realized I could just look and see that the symbol's on this chick's backpack. But yeah, if you didn't know, Bill Gates and his wife recently got divorced. This picture was photoshopped to, instead of say and, it has the exclusive or symbol. Now this is a logical operator, and how this works is you have and, you have or you have XOR. So it compares two entities, 0 being false and 1 being true. So if you have a false and a false at the top here, it evaluates to false. At the bottom, if you have a true and a true, it evaluates to false. If and only if one of the entities is true, the entire statement is true. So putting the symbol here means you get one or the other, but not both. All right, here we have a billboard with a blue screen. I can't tell where that is, but the system that was projecting whatever the ad was supposed to be, blue screened. This is the blue screen of death. Most of you have probably heard of it, but on Windows machines, if there's some type of fatal error and your operating system crashes, this could be due to some kind of hardware error or some important process failing. If the system can no longer correct itself, it basically shows this blue screen of death. I have no idea if this is real or Photoshop, but if it is real, that's pretty hilarious. All right, here we have a tweet that says, my girlfriend's parents rejected me after knowing I'm a C programmer. They said I have no class. This is supposed to be a play on words. The programming language C doesn't have support for classes. C was created like in the 70s. Classes weren't really a big thing back then. I think they were around, but they weren't popular. It wasn't really until C++ or Java in the 90s where object-oriented programming and classes became popular. So this is just kind of poking fun at C not having classes. Here we have a pretend book that's titled Excuses for Not Writing Documentation. So this is supposed to be making fun of, there are a bunch of programming books by this publisher, O'Reilly, and then there's just some like random animal and their titles all look the same. So this inspired a bunch of memes with satirical titles like Excuses for Not Writing Documentation. And there's even a meme generator, which I used to create this book, How to Not Get Downvoted on Stack Overflow. All right, here we have one that says, will you marry me? And the girl's like, no way. Sudo, will you marry me? And then it shows them getting married. Sudo is a Linux command that lets you run programs with escalated privileges. There's some programs on a system where you don't want the average user to have access to. If you put sudo in front of it, that means this is the super user of the computer, basically the administrator. You do have to put your password in. And it lets you run pretty much any program without a restriction. So here he's just regularly asking her to marry him. She says no. He puts sudo in front of it and then basically, forces them to get married. You can't just copy paste pseudocode into a program and expect it to work. And then this guy who's supposed to be Python says, that's where you're wrong, kiddo. So pseudocode is just like a watered down version of code. It's used to demonstrate the steps of a program or algorithm, but it's language agnostic and it's not worried about being syntactically correct. And when you have a language like Python, it's very pseudocode-y, as in you have things like where if you want to print something, you just write print, and then in parentheses, you write the thing you want to print. They eliminate curly braces, which makes Python easy to learn for beginners. And I feel like the more we progress, the languages are going to become more high level, and they're going to become closer to what pseudocode would be. All right, here we have C# in a bed saying, Mom, there's a monster under my bed. It's the most hideous thing I've ever seen. And then underneath him is Visual Basic saying, Why do you hate me, brother? Visual Basic was developed by Microsoft. I'm not sure if that's their first language, but it was like their first mainstream language. But it is ugly. And, I've looked at some legacy code at work that's written in Visual Basic. And every time I see it, I'm like, no, God, please, no, no. Then Microsoft developed C#, which is a much more modern language. You can do more with less. It adheres better to object-oriented programming because they just copied Java. But I personally like the language, and yeah, it's much better than Visual Basic. Full stack developer now means you can build front end, build back end, handle DevOps, and then the list kind of goes on. Create YouTube videos, program machine learning, hack any website, fix printers and routers, dunk. These kind of memes are all over LinkedIn. They're kind of beaten to death, but it's basically kind of making fun of like job descriptions of full stack developers, asking them to do basically just like everything pretty much. All right, here we have learn Python after C++, and then his expression after learn C++ after Python. So as we mentioned earlier, Python likes to dumb down, or maybe I shouldn't use that phrase. It abstracts away a lot of the low level implementation of C++. So things like pointers, memory management, Python handles all that stuff for you, but say you're going from Python to C++, the syntax isn't as intuitive, and now you just have to write a lot more code to do things manually. C++ was my first language, which made it way easier to pick up other languages, but people going from Python to C++ are usually in for a rude awakening. All right, here we have a senior dev saying, put it in the backlog. The junior dev is saying, so we can fix it later, right? And then he doesn't say anything, and she's like, so we can fix it later, right? Oh, junior developers, so young and naive. Yeah, backlogs are basically the list of work that you're planning to do at some point. But the backlogs that I've seen are usually very messy. They're literally like more work in there that's feasible to do. So what ends up happening is you eventually just go through your backlog and just purge a bunch of things that you realize you'll never get to. 6 hours of debugging can save you 5 minutes of reading documentation. I would say not really debugging, but for me, it's more like, how do I actually run this program and what the hell is it doing? So this one is a scene from The Simpsons.
This is the worst day of my life.
The worst day of your life so far.
Me, after the data structures exam. This is the worst day of my life. The academic institution I study at. The worst day of your life so far. Data structures is definitely one of the harder classes at most universities. Some of them even have it as their weeder class, which a weeder class is basically a class that tries to reduce the number of students that are pursuing a high in demand major. So yeah, basically this is saying that even if you fail one of your classes, it could always get worse. Asking a question on Stack Overflow, Searching for half an hour to find someone who asked your question, yep. I think I've asked a total of like 5 questions in my Stack Overflow career, because most of the stuff you ask, it's already been asked at some point. So I'd rather search than actually take the time to format the question how it's supposed to be. And yeah, for the most part, you can find what you're looking for pretty quickly, except the sad part is if sometimes you ask a question and you see that it was asked like 2 years ago and there's still no answer. That's always a sad face. All right, there you have it. More programming memes explained. Hey, if this video gets 10,000 likes, we'll do a part 3. But thanks for watching. Keep on coding.